Welcome my students, my dear students to Banglar Shikha Classroom 2024. It is an endeavor of the School Education Department, Government of West Bengal and West Bengal Samagro Shikha Mission. I am Dr. Jayanta Bhattacharya, Headmaster here school, going to discuss with students of class 8 English lesson number 13, the man who planted trees. Now let us come to the text itself and let us discuss about the story. It is a type of text which is called story, and the name of the author is Jean Guion. He was born on 30th March 1895 and died on 8 October 1970. He was a French writer, French author, and about the story, present story, we can say that the man who planted trees is a story which is told in flashback method. It has also travel accounts. In the background of work, the storyteller or the writer or the author, whatever you say, experienced destruction of war and enjoyed the creation of a shepherd. It is the creation of planting trees, acorn seeds, which turned into acorn trees, and it created a kind of forest in a particular hilly barren land which was previously a barren land. It was turned into a forest by the sole creative effort of a shepherd who alone tried to beautify nature. So the story has an aesthetic aspect also. It is the beautification of nature. Now, about the poet, about the writer or about the author, we can say that he was a French author and a screenwriter and of considerable fame. He was famous throughout the world for his creative contributions. His novels portray human conditions in the world facing moral, philosophical and metaphysical issues and questions. So different sorts of questions are present in the novels and writings of Jean Guion. Guion's notable works include The Man Who Planted Trees, The Horseman on the Roof, Second Harvest, The Two Riders of the Storm, etc. Now the present story is related to a man's effort and successful, say, achievement of planting trees. Now let us consider three things: time, place and action. So the time is about 40 years ago, and there are other time references 1910 and 1920 clearly mentioned in the story. When we will take up the story, we will say come to know how the writer or the author has recounted the story which actually took place, the actual experience took place about 40 years ago. Now as regards place, southeastern regions of France where the Alps penetrate into Provence. So the land is hilly and the land is described here as barren lands, and there are references to abandoned villages and barren land over a, say, vast stretch, vast area, and a kind of say forest is made, actually it is made in three sections. The barren land is turned into a forest area into three sections by the sole effort of a shepherd, and it becomes 11 kilometers long and 3 kilometers wide, the range of the forest. Now, as regards the action part of the story, briefly we can say that the writer taking up hike and journey across the barren hilly tracts or lands, the shepherd planting acorn seeds, the writer taking part in war as reported by him, the writer again travelling across the barren lands and enjoying the acorn forest. So, these are the three things: time, place and action. In a story, these three things are very much important. In a say drama, in a novel, in a story, these three things, time, place and action, these three things are very much important. My students, you note this point: time, place and action. These are very vital or very important things to be considered. Now, let us have a quick look at the characters present in the poem, in the story. The characters are primarily the character of the storyteller or the author. Then there is the character of Algiers Bouffier, a 55-year-old shepherd. The woodcutters who make charcoal as reported by the author. They are not actually present in the story itself, physically not present. Now, a flock of sheep and a dog. A flock of sheep and a dog. The shepherd has these creatures, sheep and dog. You see, they are his companions. And more important is the presence of 10,000 oak trees taking up a lot of space and forming a forest. Though they are not physically say active in the story, they are not talking, they are not saying anything, or they are not doing, but in the lap of nature they have their existence. They stand there as living characters. They have something to say, something to communicate to the world through their presence, because it was earlier a barren land. Now these oak trees are the living creatures over the barren land. So that is why they can be considered as characters who have a symbolic meaning, that they represent nature herself. And there is also the reference to the shepherd's only son and his wife. Both of them are dead, as reported and recounted by the shepherd. Long ago they died. It is a sad aspect of the story. Now we will take up the storyline and the story itself paragraph wise, and we will consult the text also. Now, in the first paragraph, brief outlines of the story developed in 13 paragraphs. Now, in the first paragraph, we find time, place and action as we stated earlier, and it was stated by the author clearly. The description of the barren landscape, the villages, abandoned village, and the Alps region, southeastern province of France. The description is there. Now let us come to the text, have a quick look at the text. Now we will consult the text. The first paragraph is about 40 years ago. About 40 years ago the action takes place as reported by the author. I went on a long hike, long journey. It is a troublesome, hard journey over a long, say, distance through the hills, absolutely unknown to tourists. Unknown to tourists meaning the tourists did not explore this area. This area was unexplored. It was a very old region of the Alps in the Provence area, southeastern province of France, and it is a barren land. The description of the lands is very much powerful. The author says that the land is wasteland, barren meaning wasteland. There is no vegetation, there is no plant, there is no tree, and nothing grew except wild lavender. Wild lavender is only visible a kind of flower, lavender flower, wild lavender. Then in the paragraph 2, let us come to the paragraph 2, description of the desolate country, ruined village houses, abandoned village, dry spring and disappearance of life from the villages. The writer's journey is here described across the barren, desolate country and the hardships suffered by him with no drinking water in his possession. Now let us come to the text to see how he has described the desolate country. I was crossing this country at its widest part. The author was crossing this area, and after walking for 3 days, he found himself in a completely desolate place where there is no water, there is no shelter, and the villages were abandoned. The ruined villages, the villages are ruined and deserted by the people. No one lives there at present, and he was camped next to the abandoned village. Abandoned meaning which is left out, which is no longer inhabited by people. I had used last drop of water, and he had in his possession no water to drink. So he was in a very tough situation, you see. And these ruined houses of the village made him think there must be one, say, spring or any source of water. He found there was indeed a spring, but it was unfortunately dry. There was no water in it. All life had disappeared from the villages, and naturally the spring was completely dried up. So we find in this paragraph description of ruined village houses, abandoned village, dry spring, disappearance of life, all these things, a desolate country, and the hardship of the say author, who has no water to drink. Now in the next paragraph we will try to find out the salient features. Now the situation changes here. The description is somewhat different from the earlier one in the second paragraph. The powerful description of beautiful sunny June day. On these lands there is no habitation, but we find that the wind is very much active. Wind's whistling was like the sound of a wild beast during its meal. When it is disturbed, it is causing or it is making a kind of severe sound, angry sound, and there is no prospect of getting drinking water. Now the concept of wind's whistling. Wind's whistling is here a kind of say sound which is like the sound of wild beast disturbed during its meal. That means it is a kind of say, anger, and the angry sound made by the wind as it is done when a beast is disturbed during its meal. So, you see here two different things are put side by side and a kind of similarity is found out between them, and this is called simile, S-I-M-I-L-E. Simile means similarity between two different concepts. It is a figure of speech used in poetry and also prose in different say writings. It is a kind of ornamentation of language, you see. Now, let us have a quick look at paragraph 3 from the text. Let us have a quick look. It was a beautiful June day. Beautiful June day is described, and that is sunny. The day is sunny with plenty of sun rays, but on the shelterless land is shelterless, high up in the sky there is the wind which is blowing continuously and making angry sound like the wild animal which is disturbed and making say sounds of anger during its meal. In the present paragraph, the author gives us a very say very powerful picture of wind which is blowing severely and making very angry sound. So, it creates a sense of fear in the mind of the readers also. So, let us now come to the next paragraph, paragraph number 4, where we find the say pictorial description. Pictorial description means descriptions which are developing some pictures. The same dryness, steep, woody plants are present there, and there is the sighting of shadowy figure at a distance. It is a kind of chance meeting with the shepherd, and he is coming with 30 lambs and a dog. All of them are taking rest on the scorching ground. Now, let us have this picture. Now, we find that it was a steep land, and there was a kind of say woody plants, steep woody plants. Everywhere there was some say disturbing things like say dry, arid, say wasteland. The picture is very much say dry. Amidst this picture, the poet views the presence of a shepherd, shadowy figure, a shadowy figure. That means very much say very much indistinct or not very clear to the author or to the narrator. On chance I headed towards it. That means I went towards it and I recognized that it was a shepherd with 30 lambs, and all of them were taking rest, and there is also a dog nearby. He gave me a drink. And a little later he led me to his cottage. So, the hospitality of the shepherd is there noted by the author. He shared his soup with me. That means gave some food also. He was hungry, he was thirsty, he gave water, he gave shelter, and he also gave some soup to eat. It had been agreed immediately that I would pass the night there in his cottage. So, the shepherd agreed, and both of them had a say discussion, and thereafter the author took rest and shelter in the cottage of the shepherd, who is full of hospitality, humanity. Now, I would pass the night there, the closest village in the still, more than being still more than a day and a half further on. That means 1 day and a half day will take to cover this land and to come to the nearest village. Where the villagers are, 4 or 5 villages are there, and the villages are mostly charcoal maker. Charcoal makers, that means they are woodcutters and they make charcoal. So, this is the description or information we derive from this paragraph. Now, come to the next point, next say analysis of the next paragraph. In the next paragraph, we see say Shepherd's activities. Shepherd's activities are here different. The night is very much say silent, and both of them are there, the narrator and the shepherd in the cottage. Now, the shepherd engages himself in different activities, taking out a bag and pouring a pile of acorns out on the table, pouring them on the table and examining most attentively, looking at the acorns and separating 100 perfect acorns, which are not bad, which are good and which can be used, planted, then going to bed. After doing this work, they went to bed. Now, the writer's reaction here. What is the writer's reaction? Now, before going to the writer's reaction, let us have a quick look at the activities done by the shepherd. The shepherd took out a bag and poured a pile of acorns out onto the table. He began to examine them one after another very critically, whether it is good or bad, with attention, and separated them, good ones from the bad ones, and then 100 perfect, that means which are very good acorns, seeds were separated from the bad ones and kept apart. The company of this man brought me a feeling of peace, and he gave me the impression that nothing could disturb him. I was intrigued, that means he was puzzled. So, this is the reaction part. So, let us come to the point where we will discuss the reaction of the author, reaction of the narrator. He was very much intrigued and wanted to find out more about this man, that means the shepherd. So, let us have a quick look at the slide number 6, where we will find the reaction. The writer's reaction. The shepherd's company gave him feeling of peace, and the writer was puzzled and curious to find out more about the shepherd. That means the writer was so much curious to know. He did not expect that this man at night will pour acorns and separate them. Then what will he do with these things? He must plant them, but let us wait for the day, for the morning to come. Now, in the next our paragraph number 7, we will come to the activities of the shepherd. The next day, the shepherd soaked the acorns in a bucket of water, took an iron rod as a walking stick, and invited the writer to go with him. Now, this is the main idea of paragraph number 7. So, after doing this, he went on to do his next part of work. And in paragraph 8 we find, on reaching the selected place, the shepherd made hole with the rod and planted 100 acorn seeds with utmost care, complete care, very carefully. He planted them into the soil. Now, let us have a brief discussion or brief look at the text itself. Having arrived at the place he had been heading for, he began to pour his iron rod into the ground. With the iron rod, which also may serve the purpose of a walking stick, he used it, and he made a hole in which he placed the acorn seed and pressed it with the soil and left it there. In this way he completed this work of planting the acorn seeds. So, the seed bed is now prepared, and the seeds will developed into saplings, and thereafter it will have their growth, natural growth, and they will become trees. So, this is the activity, agricultural activity, or this is the activity of a shepherd who is very much aware of afforestation. You see, in this time of global warming, we will always encourage people to plant more and more trees. You know, and you do in different schools, different activities taken up by the school authorities and your locals to plant more and more trees. So, afforestation is a kind of social work and awareness of the beautification of nature, and this can prevent to some extent global warming, you know. So, this shepherd has a very much relevance in our days, in our present world. Such shepherds should be encouraged, such shepherds should be respected, because they love nature, mother nature, you see. Now, let us come to the next paragraph, paragraph number 9. Now, information about the shepherd's act of planting 100,000 acorns in 3 years, and out of them, out of 100,000 acorns planted by the shepherd alone in 3 years, 20,000 only grew up. Now, this is not a very poor number, because 20,000 trees, 20,000 oak trees may have done a great job, might have done a great job. And you see that the shepherd has made a kind of afforestation, that means planting trees. Now, in the next paragraph, paragraph number 10, we find the writer's sense of wonder and the shepherd's recounting of his past. Both his only son and wife died long ago, and his present condition. So, this paragraph is very much touching, very much painful to the readers. I think that it was also to the writer himself when he came to know, and when he describes in terms of words the sufferings of and the change of the lifestyle of the shepherd. Let us have a quick look at paragraph number 10. Let us have a quick look at the text. It was at this moment that I began to wonder. Now, he is filled with a sense of wonder at the age of this man, and the man, the shepherd, described that he is 55 years old, and his name is here completely disclosed. And what is his name? His name is Algiers Bouffier. He had a farm in the plains, and he used to live in the plains with his wife and his only son, but unfortunately he lost them. So it is the tragedy of his life. What he says, he had lost his only son and then his wife. 2 successive deaths took place. He had retired into solitude. That means in a place where no one will disturb him, he will live alone, all alone in the midst of nature. So he came to the hilly tract or hilly region where he lived with his sheep and dog, and started a noble work of planting oak trees or planting oak seeds, acorn seeds. So acorn seeds are here. I think, at least I think, the acorn seeds are here like his children, because he lost his son. Because he lost his son, you see, he lost his wife. So they are the living human beings. That's why they can be considered as living characters to him. He put them in the bucket, soaked them with water, planted them in the land. He nurtured them day after day, year after year, and 20,000 grew up as tall trees, oak trees. So they are his children. This is the idea of the shepherd. Now see, he had concluded that his country was dying for lack of trees. Another motivation. His land was dying and the people were dying without vegetation, without trees. That's why he took up the noble task of planting trees, tree plantation program he took up. It is not a program, it is the inner urge. The urge comes from within, the inner feeling that is compelling him to plant so much oak seeds. Oak trees are growing up gradually, and he was very much happy, he was very much joyful, he was very much peaceful to see them grow. Now, he added that having nothing more important to do, he had resolved to remedy the situation. So, the remedy, the land was without vegetation and the remedy is his action. What is the action? Action of planting oak trees, and the oak trees are forming a kind of forest. That is the greatest achievement of this shepherd in his life at this time of his life. Now, next in our next paragraph, paragraph number 11, paragraph number 11, we just have a mere information about the separation between the writer and the shepherd, and thereafter, say in paragraph 12, the writer recounts the war in which he actively participated. Then the writer, in search of the fresh air, again set out through that deserted country. Everything remained unchanged, and the writer was hopeful to see the 10,000 acorn trees well grown by that time. So now the writer recounts that war took place. The writer recounts the what took place, and he actively engaged himself in it, participated in the war. Then the writer was very much unhappy during this time when he participated in the war. He had a kind of inner suffering, and he was in search of fresh air. Now, the words or the expression in the text, I had a great desire to breathe a little pure I had a great desire to breathe a little pure fresh air, little pure air. This has a kind of reference to another poem which is very much pertinent in this situation to describe to you. It is a poem by John Keats, a British poet, who developed this idea in the poem, one who has been long in city paint. That means who is confined in a city for a long time and has not gone to the village area, in close touch with the mother nature. He has a day's outing and he enjoys nature, lying down on the grassy field, in the agricultural field. He enjoys the day's pleasure. So, it is like that. The poet, the author here tries to find out some fresh air, and in search of finding out the fresh air, he set out again, he started journey again, and again he took up his journey across the country, across the barren country. Along the trail throughout the journey, he had to suffer the hazards of the deserted country. The land has not changed, there is no change at all. The same thing continues. Vast areas are barren, without any plantation, without any trees, without any vegetation, and ever since the day before I had been thinking about the shepherd, he was reminded of, he was thinking about the shepherd, where he is, what he is doing, how he has developed the area with oak trees. So, these things are occupying his mind, the writer's mind at present. Now, he reports us 10,000 oaks. I had said to myself, must really take up a lot of space, that means vast area, you see. And in the concluding paragraph, paragraph number 13, we find the writer categorically states that war failed to stop Buffet from planting acorn seeds. The writer was spellbound and speechless to see the forest of acorn trees in 3 sections. 3 sections covering a vast area, 11 kilometers long overall and 3 kilometers wide. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Only one man with no technical aids carried on this tree plantation program and made a forest of acorn trees in 3 sections, 11 kilometers long overall and 3 kilometers wide. The scene was remarkably impressive to the writer, to the author. Now, he says, let us come to the text again. Now, he says, the oak trees of 1910 were now 10 years old. So, the age of the oak trees of 1910 are now 1920. That means, when the writer visits the area, it is 1920. Were taller than me and than him meaning the shepherd. The scene was impressive, I was actually speechless and we passed the whole day in silence. So, the ruling word here in this forest is silence. Now, you see, sometimes the word silence is very much vocal, that means very much meaningful. Some silence is very much meaningful. Here in this situation, when they are visiting this area, this forest, trees, this area of oak trees, and they are going forward, they are silent, both the shepherd and the writer. And in the midst of the silence reigns the magnetic attraction of the Mother Earth, the magnetic attraction of the forest, and the magnetic attraction of the mighty personality of the shepherd. He should be respected. We all should salute him, because one man who lost his only son, who lost his wife, left the farm in the plain land and came back to came to the, not back actually, came to the hilly region, started planting acorn seeds and making a forest of oak trees. What a great concept, what a great effort, what a great mind, what a great vision. It is a great vision, vision of a naturalist, vision of an agriculturalist, vision of a humanist, vision of a philanthropist. I say he is a great philanthropist, and I think you all will agree with me. Now, without any aids, technical help, aids meaning health, device, etc., it struck me that men could be as effective as God in domains other than destruction. This line or this utterance has a great significance. This is the positively charged reaction of the author or the narrator. He says that men could be as effective as God. He compares men with the God, or with the capacity or the power of God in respect of creativity. Men could be as creative as God is. So, it is a kind of respect, it is a kind of honor showered on the shepherd. And I think that the shepherd is very much powerful to lead us to the idea that we all should develop this kind of positive attitude towards life, towards nature, towards humanity, towards human beings. And if we can all do this, we can give the earth a different shape, different character. Not deforestation, but afforestation. That is emphasized by the solitary work of this shepherd. So, this shepherd is a great character in this story, who silently walks and works for mankind. So, now come back to the next slide, next part, moral lesson. Moral lesson is there in this story. What is the moral lesson? In the last line, the moral lesson lies very subtly, very powerfully. We should make this earth green and plant trees and love this Mother Earth and nature. Without this, without love for Mother Earth, human beings will be destroyed in no time, very soon. So, this story has a great relevance in our times. We all should keep in our mind that we should take care of the Mother Earth and try to plant more and more trees. Next point, hard times come, but with patience and hard work, joy of life can be felt. That means it is the idea that we all have the ups and downs in our life. Days of sorrow will give time to days of joy if we have positive attitude in our life, in our mind. And the third one, which is very much important to us, war is destructive, but any creative activity yields positive results, joy and peace. Now, what is destructive? That is why the work could not say resist or stop the narrator or the author from coming back again to this say area where the shepherd lived, where the shepherd had his existence and where he planted oak trees. He comes back to nature and he comes back to the place where creative activity is going on. The shepherd is doing this creative activity and there lies the joy of life, the peace of life. Now, next in our discussion we will take up some say word meanings, and I think that these words and their meanings are not there except the fifth one, intrigued. Other words are not there in your textbook, explained in your textbook. Absolutely meaning totally or completely. Monotonous, boring and always the same. Abandoned, not being used or looked after anymore. Steep, here steep means fairly strong. Steep woods, that means strong woods. Next, intrigued. Drew interest, being unusual or mysterious. Drew interest, being unusual or mysterious. The author was intrigued here, intrigued by the character of the shepherd. Now, the word impressive, something making one admire as good and important. You admire something, you praise something, and it is because of the thing which is basically good and important to you. Now, destruction, destruction meaning to undo something or to destroy something, when something is destroyed. Effective, having the result that one wants. That means you want some result and when you get it, get that result, desired result, that is your effective result. Next, in our concluding part, we will take up some questions, short answer type questions. What are the questions? You can study these questions, you can work out these answers. Say, how does the narrator describe the province and the abandoned village? You will get the answer in the first paragraph and also in the second paragraph. The clues are there. Next, what did the shepherd do with acorns? With the acorns, you know it very well that he planted trees, acorn plants, acorn seeds developed gradually into trees, oak trees. Has the June day been described? How has the June day been described? It is a powerful sunny day, bright sunny day with the wind whistling like the angry animal at meal. Then what was the reaction of the narrator on seeing the huge oak trees? He was overwhelmed, surprised, awestruck. All these terms can be used and that is there in your text. You will find out the answer in your own. Next, what message does the author give through this story? The message is, as we discussed in the last part of our discussion, the moral lessons are the message, I think. So, you can prepare this question. There are many other questions in the text and gradually when you will have a close reading of the text, you will find out many other questions and you can say answer them if you study them thoroughly. Now, thank you all for attending patiently this discussion on lesson number 13, the man who planted trees. Again, thank you all for your active participation and say